Hello and welcome. I'm Gohar Raza and you are watching Eureka. When a country has a situation where 1/3 of its population is latent carrier of TB, when a large number of children die of diseases which can be cured, such as pneumonia and stomach ailments, when a country has second largest population of HIV/AIDS, one can argue that the country is sick. And in this kind of situation, people from other countries will not come and cure you. On the one hand, our scientists have to rise to the occasion and provide solution to our own problems. And on the other hand, the doctors have to go to areas where the patients reside. But we don't have enough doctors. Per 1,500, we have just one doctor, which is a very, very low number. And therefore, some of the brightest and the restless have started using the most modern techniques to reach the masses. Today, we have a special guest, Dr. Anurag Agrawal. Welcome to Eureka. Welcome to Rajya Sabha channel.
My pleasure.
Let's begin by asking the question which I normally ask. How do you look back towards your childhood? What shaped you to become a scientist?
I think from the very beginning, as much as I can remember, science has always been a part of our house. My father was a physician who actually did research for a living.
So a doctor's family.
A doctor's family. And on my mother's side, almost everybody that we knew was a botanist. My grandfather founded the botany department in Delhi. My uncle was a premier botanist.
My generation, in fact, rose or was educated because of his textbooks.
Yes.
He was a great name in botany and fellow of Royal Society at that time.
Yes. Professor Panchanan Maheshwari's name is pretty well known throughout. And my uncle Satish Maheshwari also has made very important contributions. So growing up, when we used to sit down and talk, the topic would almost always veer towards science. And the atmosphere was such that we did not prioritize examinations or something else, but it was more about learning for the sake of learning.
But your mother was MA in English. So did you get some inputs about literature and other areas of human activity at home, or it was science and science and science?
So we had a very, very reading type of a household where there were lots of books on every subject lying around. I mean, I still remember one of the bookshelf books was 11 volumes of the history of philosophy. So as a child growing up, you get to read a bunch of things. And because my father was very ardent about reading in Hindi and my mother in English, she was an MA in history though, we really had all kinds of books lying around and we had a voracious appetite for reading. In fact, my mother used to joke, even if she leaves a Grah Shobha lying around, if I don't have anything else, I'll pick up the Grah Shobha and read that as well. So I could tell her some recipes also, by the way. But no, my mother's main influence was not so much upon guiding the discussion as providing an atmosphere where we didn't talk so much about other things that many other people worry a lot about. But the atmosphere was always, you must read in the evenings. All of us would be sitting, having our own books and reading. And never really questioning, how is this exam coming? When are you going to do this? Why don't you sit down and read? So it was just about enjoying the process of learning as opposed to, being evaluated for it every year or so. In fact, I wasn't even a top 5 student in the class on a regular basis. So yeah, it worked out fine.
You were always a good student, and it's because of the home atmosphere that it came naturally to you, right, that you have to do.
So I was always a good student, but I was not equally good in all subjects. And there was no emphasis in the home on rankings. So it wasn't, so, to get the first rank in class, you must perform equally well in civics.
Education was not exam driven.
It was not exam driven at all.
It was learning driven.
It was learning. So if I don't like civics,
don't read.
Don't read civics. I mean, you have to read enough to pass the class.
And you didn't like civics?
Actually, I didn't like civics. I mean, I scored near like 50-60% in civics most of the time. My politics and knowledge of the Constitution is pretty much zero. the same time that I would have spent on trying to get to know a subject I didn't like was spent reading lots of books on a variety of topics. So by the time you're already in your 11th, you read Einstein's own books on his experiences. So that's never going to come in an exam. But it makes you enjoy sciences, and that I think was critical in becoming a scientist.
And it was important at that time for you to enjoy science,
yes.
and that is what the parents realized.
Yes.
But when did you realize that science is going to be the destiny, or it was a natural thing? You never realized and you moved along the path of science.
Yeah, I think it was pretty much expected all the time. I mean, I look back and I can see that.
And was it also natural that you will become a doctor?
Pretty much so. In fact, the original plan was not to become a doctor. My own plan was probably not to become a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
I was there at the launch of the first IBM PC in 1982, I think.
Right.
My father was at Mayo. Rochester, Minnesota has the biggest IBM plant those days, and they held the launch of the first IBM PC. I have owned a PC since that 1982, and I was a reasonably good programmer. And my thought was I would go into perhaps engineering, but my father was always more inclined towards my becoming a doctor. So somehow in the end, in India, the parents guide the direction you take. Plus, I come from a reasonably suffering family of asthma. My grandfather died of it. My father eventually died of it. I have it. My daughter has it. My sister has it. My sister's son has it. So I think he knew that being able to manage my own disease would also be much helped if I was able to do medicine. And he had a great suspicion of doctors in general. I mean, he himself being a doctor. So he was a steroid-dependent asthmatic, poorly treated in the beginning and so on. So he figured medicine requires a license, research, computing doesn't. Become a doctor, understand your own problems, understand the problems of those nearby. Maybe you will find a solution, maybe you will not find a solution, but that's how it went.
So you knew that you were going to be probably asthmatic, or you were asthmatic, and therefore it was very important for you to go into the area of medicine and emotionally also explore scientifically the area and do good. I have to take a break. Don't go anywhere. We'll come back soon. Welcome back. Dr. Anurag, we were discussing that it is the family atmosphere, the training at home, the library, which was personal library, was there, and it drove you towards science, pushed you towards science, but there was no pressure ever to excel, either gain high scores in examination, etc. There was no. Do you feel that you are lucky as compared to most of the children who grow up in our country, where they are seriously pushed by either parents or the school to do well?
I think I was extremely privileged to grow up in a house where, one, the passion for learning was encouraged more than exams, and number two, the opportunity was there. Because if only learning was pushed, but no opportunity was there to get true learning, I'm not sure that would have worked out well either.
So this opportunity that you are talking about is about a school, about the college, about whatever you wanted to do, you could do.
And the resources.
And the resources were there.
Yes.
And it was a middle class family.
It was a middle class house, but yeah, books was a very big area of interest.
Whatever
so nobody ever said no towards books. So I could walk with my father into a book exhibition, put my finger on an encyclopedia, and whether we had money for vacations or not, the encyclopedia would be bought. I don't remember taking that many family vacations outside the city, but I remember buying a huge number of books.
It's very interesting that when you sat for the exam for medicine, most of the parents would be very jittery. Most of the parents would be nervous in today's condition, that whether my son is going to clear the exam or not, my daughter is going to, and they will be very, very happy and celebrate if the name is there in the list. But your father was so confident that he will clear the exam that he bought the books in advance before the result came.
Yeah.
What was the basis for this kind of confidence?
I honestly can only tell you what my father said about it. My father said he had seen enough number of people go through, and ultimately doctors aren't particularly strong in physics and so on, and my strongest subjects were actually physics, chemistry, and so on. So he figured that biology I would read in the end, and my physics, chemistry was so strong that it distinguished me from other people taking the exams. And he felt very, very comfortable. In fact, my to-be wife's picture had come in the newspaper for getting a cent% in biology. My wife's name is Anjali. And after he had bought the books, I was really angry with him because I was telling him, look, you're going to make a fool out of me. Now, that is a girl whose parents can say, yes, she's definitely going to get into medical school. She scored 100 in biology as top modern school. I haven't done any such thing. And he actually looked at her picture. It was a very nice picture. He said, well, I'm very sure you guys will meet at the All India Institute of Medical Sciences. It turned out we were classmates. We were also ranked number 1 and ranked number 2.
What a high level of confidence.
Yeah. In fact, we were even serial ranked. She was the topper in the girls. I topped the boys in the All India entrance.
But normally a doctor who is gone into this profession will not go into the research. Make money ultimately. Why did you not choose that? Why did you come to research?
Actually, it was a very, very conscious decision that Anjali and I took together. Because my initial desire was to finish.
How did you meet?
Oh, so Anjali and I...
You were in the class and then the vibes were there right from the beginning, or?
Yeah, so Anjali is the roll number right before mine. So Anjali, Anurag.
Okay.
We were on the same dissection table. And like I said, my father had already predicted that we were going to meet in All India Institute, and we met. So it was quite interesting, actually. So maybe that was the back of my mind, I don't know. But we took a very conscious decision that we should pursue what we want to do. And after we finished MBBS, then we went to the US for additional training.
Both of you went together?
Both of us. She went for radiology, I went for medicine. And she was always very supportive that with two of us, as professionals, there's no point both of us focusing our lives towards the same end.
Right.
She anyway came from a family of private practitioners. She wanted to go into practice, and she was equally comfortable that I should go into what I wanted to do. And that's been worked out very well for both of us.
And you didn't want to treat people directly, but had a much bigger goal in life, probably to go to basics of things. But the choice of working on lungs was driven by your own conditions. Do you look back and say that I could have done much better in some other area?
No. I think one, because
if you hadn't had lung problem, what would you choose?
That's a very interesting question. If I
Let
had
me
not
put
had
it other way around. Yeah.
If I did not have any lung disease, no special insight into lungs, I would have probably gone into oncology or hematology. These are the organs that are most accessible.
Right.
And most of the genomics cutting-edge research has happened in these areas. For example, leukemia is now almost completely curable. Not true for lung cancer.
Right.
You can't take out the lung and just put it back, while you can take out somebody's marrow. So I think these were the most cutting-edge fields when I was in training. Baylor, where I trained, was one of the focal places of the Human Genome Project. I would almost certainly have gone into these specialities as opposed to the lung. But with the lung, I felt a special affinity. One, you take care of yourself. You had no people around you. Number 3, having suffered through a disease, you do have an insight beyond what a typical doctor would have, no matter how many patients they have seen. So, and plus,
That's a very profound statement, by the way, that you have to be a patient if you want to cure a particular disease.
You would have more chances.
Probably you'll have better insight into the disease.
Nothing beats suffering from something to gain insight into exactly what it feels like, to have an understanding of many of the things that you read, because you can relate to them personally.
You went abroad. You passed out from one of the best institutions in the country. One can't think of a better institution, even today, when market economy is driving even health sector. When you went abroad, was there a very different kind of atmosphere, different kind of research that was being done, or you could have done it in India?
I think I went abroad at a very right time. I think there was a huge funds constraint within India in those days, in the 90s. And India of the 2000s and India of the 90s are two completely different places. And when I left, I don't think we had any absolutely clear intentions of we must come back. But then India changed, we changed, and in 2000 we found joint opportunities of coming back together. And we always, used to meet people, talk about how life would have been. And I figured, I don't want to be 50 years old and talking about what life could have been if I went back to India. I figured, let's go back,
Yes.
let's see how it is. If we don't like it, we had enough confidence to know that, the world would accept us again. And so we came back and we figured if we like it here, no place better than home. So
And
that's
you
how
still think that it was a right decision to
Perfect
join
decision.
eventually IGIB, which is one of the best institutions as far as research is concerned?
I think it was the perfect decision because what I had learned from the US and become used to was freedom, where you don't have a head of department who tells you precisely what to do on a daily basis. And then in the process, I met Professor Sameer Brahmachari, my former director and Director General CSIR. And he struck me as a person who would take bets on people. He would find the right person and then let them be. And that was very important to me because, once you're back from the US, you're not used to being told what to do on a daily basis.
Correct.
And the environment in medical colleges can sometimes be a bit constraining because it's a very hierarchical system. So in IGIB, it was completely non-hierarchical, and my senior colleague, Professor Balram Ghosh, was an extremely supportive person. So, found the
And
best
you
of
were
everything.
given total freedom to work on lung diseases and do whatever you wanted to do.
Yes.
There was enough financial support. I have to take a break, but the discussion will continue. We'll come back soon. Welcome back. Dr. Agrawal, we were discussing that you chose asthma as the area of work because of personal reasons. But then it goes much beyond personal, much, much beyond. You have worked on stem cells, mitochondria. Would you like to explain what is this all about? Why is it important to go to basic levels and then at cell level to cure asthma? Asthma could be a disease which can be cured otherwise also, probably.
Sure. So one recognition that you get, both as a physician as a patient, is asthma is just a name. And that you realize, all diseases are just names. If you wheeze, it's reversible, it's asthma. But there can be so many reasons. And around the last decade, we have seen that people with obesity, people with what's called the metabolic syndrome, hypertension, and so on, are much more likely to develop asthma. And this is difficult to treat with classical anti-inflammatory therapy. And these people don't have much inflammation. So the mitochondria became a very topic of investigation for us because we had seen that typical asthma has mitochondria that don't work well. Mitochondria are known not to work well in metabolic syndrome and obesity. And we asked the question, is mitochondria a critical part of the puzzle? Because allergy, inflammation, obesity, lipids, everything could integrate at that point and show how the asthmatic airway is dysfunctional. And we had good success with that. And around the same time came the concept of, can you do mitochondrial transfer? So if you have bad mitochondria, are you going to heal them? Are you going to give new ones? And we looked at stem cells as a possible mechanism.
If I say in simple language that the cells get affected and through this therapy, you can replace those cells with healthy cells. That is the method that you are working on.
Not replace the cells, replace the mitochondria of the cells.
Yes.
Because replacing the cells has been much tougher than we thought because the new cells often get killed by your own immune system. But what we found is that these stem cells can form these tubes that we call the nanotubes, like a highway with the damaged cells. And on this highway, the mitochondria will chug along like little trucks, and they will go into the recipient cell, and now the recipient cell becomes much more healthy. And then we figured out the machinery by which these mitochondria move. And as somebody put, that's like putting wheels on the mitochondria, and then we could make the mitochondria go very fast. And using these in animal models, we could get much, much more effective reversal of the airway remodeling, the airway changes in asthma compared to previous therapies.
What you are explaining in a few sentences and maybe 30 seconds has taken you how much time to do?
Probably
work
6
on?
years already. 6 years of work.
And
One
I checked up your papers, your research papers. The last one that you have given us in your CV contains 15 names. So it's a large team that has worked for 5 years to arrive at
Absolutely.
this very important statement that you
And
are
that
giving
is
there.
a critical point you're making, because this nature of collaborations, transnational, are what's new about the India of today. Institutes are working seamlessly. My stem cells come from my friend, Professor Mohan Vani from Pune. He ships them, the stem cells arrive.
Right.
We have people who help us with a lot of assays. Lots of people have come back from the US in the last 5-6 years with very specialized training. The microscopes, the facilities are state of art. IGIB has put a huge amount of financial support behind me. I have fantastic colleagues on that paper who have virtually given me their lab from the day I joined. This atmosphere is unique, and I think that's one of the things I loved about IGIB, why I chose to join IGIB.
It's great to see a very happy and satisfied scientist who is doing excellent work. And for this work, you were given the highest award in the country for young scientists, called SS Bhatnagar Award. But you have been getting awards throughout, in India as well as abroad. Which one do you remember with love and passion?
There are two awards that really stick out in my mind. The first is the Joseph Rodarte Award that I got at Baylor College of Medicine.
Right.
And the reason it sticks in my mind is that Joe Rodarte was one of the most premier physiologists of the world in respiratory disease, who was supposed to be my mentor, but then developed pancreatic cancer and couldn't guide me and passed away. So to receive an award in his name was a great honor. And the Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar Award will be very, very special, especially because, one, it's one of the major awards of the country, but number two, I would be the third generation in my family to have the award.
Wow.
My grandfather, my uncle, and me.
That
were
is
all.
very interesting.
So
it's become a family trait to receive this Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar Award. It's simply great to have you here. I wanted to ask you a question about other project of yours, which is extremely fascinating, that you're generating a very large database of India, where the diseases could be probably identified before a person falls sick. Would you like to tell us something about that?
Yes, certainly. All of you might have seen the game of, like 20 questions. These days, if you go to the market, you can buy a toy that'll give you about 80-90% accuracy of guessing what's on your mind with a yes or no questions. And many people have been trying to do that for medicine, right? I mean, patient gives you symptom 1, yes, no, ask some questions, and then you have a disease. So people think that doctors recognize all patterns. That's not the way we really work. The way we work is we have typical lists of top things for which we are seeing patients, and we ask questions based on the probability of the different diagnoses. And as we shift, we ask a different question that again shifts the most probable and the next most probable. That's what's called a Bayesian system of thought.
All right.
But it requires a huge knowledge of prior probabilities. And India is a very tough country. If you have swollen leg from a tribal woman in Bihar, she might have an infection of a filaria. If you have it from a high-flying jet flyer, they might have a deep vein thrombosis. So context is critical. And we wanted to get the type of data across the country to build these databases from which these priors can be calculated. And we wanted to do something for the people at the same time. So along with Hewlett-Packard, we built these healthcare centers inside shipping containers, completely integrated and completely on the cloud. Every visit, every piece of data goes straight to the cloud, is churned up. We pass back data regarding the operational state, so it's completely transparent. You could log on and see which equipments are working, which were not used, how many patients came. But on the back end, we are building these massive databases. We already have 100,000 patient visits. That down the line, a person could use a GPS system, log in. Based on the GPS, you know the location, you know the top diagnoses, and then you would build the questions to separate the different types of diagnoses. This will be some time.
And these centers are created in a shack or a hut or anywhere it can be created. It doesn't require a special building or something.
No. In the beginning, we are making them in shipping containers, so it's completely integrated. The walls of the shipping container are your walls, but we have built versions that could just go inside a hut or existing primary health center. Basic idea is to have one wire coming out of an entire package. You connect the wire, it's instant on.
Will it also help in identifying before a contagious disease or epidemic is spread and give the warning, like we today have warning systems in the area of season, and we can predict
Absolutely.
where the...
So the simplest example I can give you is think of a stock market moving average, right? I mean, you have a 20-day moving average, 50-day moving average. When a stock breaks through that line, you know it's going to go up or down. Same way, imagine you can build moving averages for fever, for different types of presentations. Now, automatically the cloud starts seeing lots of patients coming in beyond the typical moving average confidence estimates. It knows an epidemic is about to occur. It could send an alert, and that's actually the basis of what we are planning.
So it will be almost like giving warning for a storm.
Absolutely like that. See some parameters of it early and predict that a storm is coming.
That the storm is
Yes, about to hit
the country. It's been really fascinating talking to you. Would you like to give a message to the younger generation?
Yes, I think the most important message I would like to give is be skeptical about things that you read, about things that you do. Because the essence of science tends to be a healthy dose of criticism. If you don't question it, science will never grow. And that's really the most important thing. Question your teachers, question people around. Always have the spirit of inquiry. Scientific
older
temper.
generation.
Absolutely.
And that is probably the basis for evolution of humankind as well.
Absolutely.
If you don't question your previous generation, we will not evolve. That is the message we carry back home. May I, on your behalf, promise our viewers that if they have any question or comment, you'd be happy to answer?
My pleasure.
Please do write to us at Eureka, rstv@gmail.com if you have any question. For now, that's what we brought, one of the best scientists in the country. Next week, we'll come back with another equally fascinating personality. Till then, goodbye.